Very important for Southeast Asia. If you're looking at the first map that's shown by the previous speaker, three major areas of rainforest in the world. One is in the Amazon, secondly in western part of Africa and Southeast Asia, where I come from. And the issue here is that not just the primary forest meeting with the forest, but if you change the land use, convert that into oil palm plantation. Oil palm plantation is also a plant which is emitting a huge greenhouse gas, volatile organic compound like isoprene. So changing this land cover of the whole places, it might also change the emissions, the amount of volatile organic compound in the atmosphere, and it will change the chemistry of the atmosphere, and it will change the climate change, it will change the air quality. And this is the domain of work that I'm working at, and I'm working at two quickly. This is I'm using the climate model, WRF model, and use the output from the WRF model to the Megan model to estimate how much is the biogenic emissions emitted under different climate change scenario. And I'm specifically interested in isoprene because that's the largest volatile organic compound emitted in the atmosphere and the most important one. And what we see here is to show you how temperature, when we change temperature from the present day with the present day and to the immediate year, like 2030 to 39, middle of the century and at the end of the century, and how the temperatures are changing to two climate change scenarios. So just looking at the last bottom here, under the worst case scenario that's in business as usual, you didn't do much in mitigating the climate change and how the temperature is changing. So globally, regionally, locally, the atmospheric temperature is going to increase. And what is the consequences of this increasing temperature to the volatile organic compound from the natural sources? It is countered the anthropogenic sources of human made. And the changes you see, it's very red in color, telling you that at the end of the century, global temperature or regional like Southeast Asia is going to increase. And I believe in your own region as well, is forecasted almost the same trend. Same thing with the radiation, photosynthetic radiation, which is important for the plants. Yeah, it's also increasing at the end of the century for the same scenario. Now, looking at the main things of the work here is with that climate change scenario, the increase of temperature at different time slices until the end of the century, how the isoprenes responding to it in terms of volume of emitted into the atmosphere. So at the present day, I call it 2013 because in Southeast Asia it's a neutral year, no El Nino, no other things. You look at the red color or the green, so it looks like the Borneo Island, the Indonesian side, the peninsula side of Malaysia, the isoprene is moderate or low, relatively, comparatively. But for both climate change scenarios, 4.5 and 8.5. But look at the 4.5 at different time slices. Maybe you're interested at the end of the century or middle of the century. And you see the green or even the orange or the yellow is enlarging the area, telling you that it is responding to the climate. There are a lot of emissions of biogenic emissions progressing towards the end of this century, both climate change scenario. DGF is staying for December, January, February. That is considered different monsoon in Malaysia or wet season. Here is winter. June, July, GGA is June, July, August, which is representing the warmer temperature in this region, which is plenty of sun, yeah, or different monsoon. And the worst case scenario for business as usual, RCP 8.5, you will see that emissions of biogenic emission at the end of the century in both, like Papua New Guinea, is going to be much more, or Borneo Island, or some part of the islands in Southeast Asia. So this is how it's responding to the climate change in the future. And before I concluded this one, And this is just show you the isoprene changes due to climate change. Yeah? And if you're looking at the end of the century, probably you will see that very much greenish over here, showing you that largely most of the Southeast Asia region, which is covered with red forest or oil palm plantation or ivory proofs that you have today, responding positively to this climate change, meaning that it's emitting a lot of volatile organic compound, particularly isoprene. And with that emissions, we are also working on how this increase of biogenic emissions like isoprene affecting the air quality, especially the ozone episode in this particular region. Actually, that is, we have that work material presenting it in different time, different order and things like that. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your attention.